Dear students, in this video we are going to start a new chapter called gravitation. We all are well acquainted with the concept of gravitation. Gravitation is a phenomena where two bodies are attracted to each other because of their mass. Their mass is the reason of attraction between the bodies. See, mass is a kind of a property of body due to which it exerts a gravitational force on the other body. We know that our entire universe is bound because of gravitation only, right? The solar system, whether you talk about the galaxies, everything is bound to each other because of this phenomena of gravitation only, right? So first of all, we will be discussing Kepler's laws of planetary motion, which will tell you what are the laws obeyed by the planets when they are revolving around the sun. There are certain things, there are certain regulations that the planets obey when they are revolving around the sun, and those are summarized in the form of Kepler's laws. Kepler's laws are the three laws that Kepler gave to explain the planetary motion. So talking about the first law, Kepler's first law is also known as law of orbits because it talks about the orbits, right? Kepler's first law states that the planet revolves around the sun in an elliptical orbit and not in a circular orbit. Okay, planet revolves around the sun in an elliptical orbit, and the sun is not situated at the center of that ellipse, rather it is situated at the focus of the ellipse. So this is something very important. Don't think circular orbits in your mind when we are thinking the planetary motion around the sun. Right? So this is an ellipse. Here you can see that this is the planet which is revolving around the sun, and this is the sun which is present at focus. So when the planet is at farthest distance away from the sun, like this is the farthest distance away from the sun, so this point will be known as aphelion, and when the planet comes closer to the sun, this is the closest point, okay, with respect to the sun, so that will be known as perihelion. And this whole axis A to P is known as major axis, and this axis C to D is known as minor axis. So O to P will be known as semi-major axis and O to C will be known as semi-minor axis. I repeat, this is the major axis, this is the minor axis, and if you take half of each one of them, you're going to get semi-major axis and semi-minor axis respectively. Now we are going to find out the eccentricity of this orbit. Eccentricity talks about how curved is the orbit, like how much curvature this orbit has got, right? To find out the eccentricity, this will be OS divided by OP. OS means center of ellipse and sun, and OP is center to semi-major axis, right? So OS remains as it is, and OP we can take it A, and this whole distance can be taken as 2A. So in place of OP, put A, and E will come out as OS upon A, so that OS is equal to AE, right? After that, you can see that sun has got two distances, SP and SA. So SP is equals to RP, okay, this much distance, and SA is equal to RA, where P and A are the 2 points known as perihelion and aphelion respectively. After that, if you want to find out the value of SP, that means this much distance. So you can think that if you do OP minus OS, OP minus OS, you're going to get SP, right? So OP was equal to A, semi-major axis, OS is equal to AE, the value that you have got. So OP A, OS AE, and you get this. Same way, now you want to calculate SA, distance of aphelion from the sun. That will be equal to OS plus OA, where OS is again AE and OA is equal to A. So that way you can find out the distance of SA also. Now you just have to take the ratio. So basically, in the Kepler's first law, what we have studied that planet revolves around the sun in an elliptical orbit, okay, and the sun is not situated at the center of that ellipse, rather it is situated at the focus of that ellipse. After that, we had found the eccentricity of that ellipse, like how curved is the ellipse, and after that, we have discussed 2 points, like when the planet is at the farthest distance away from the sun, and when the planet is at the closest distance away from the sun. So we have taken the ratio of those two distances, right? So this is all about perihelion and aphelion. Now we'll talk about Kepler's second law. Kepler's second law states that the aerial velocity of the planet around the sun is constant. Now, what is aerial velocity? See, this is again that path that I had shown you earlier in the first law. So this is the planet revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit. These are the points aphelion, perihelion. So suppose the planet is P1, okay? Right now it is at the position P1. After 1 month you spot it at P2, okay? And now the season changes. After few months, the season changes and the planet comes closer to the sun, right? So this is the position of the planet P3, new position after the season changes. And suppose after again 1 month, I am keeping the time record same, right? After 1 month, the planet comes to P4. Now what they are saying, that regardless of the distance from the sun to the planet, like regardless of the distance from the sun, the planet always covers same areas in same intervals of time. Isn't it interesting? Like I had given 1 month to record the planet's position earlier, and after a season change also I had given 1 month to the planet so that I can record its position change. And can you believe that this area is actually equal to this area? Right? So this means in a particular time span, the areas covered by the planet will exactly be same regardless of its distance from the sun. So this is known as aerial velocity is constant. Like area divided by time is constant. We know that linear velocity is linear displacement upon time. Angular velocity is angular displacement upon time. Same way, aerial velocity is area covered per unit time. Okay, so keep in mind, this is Kepler's second law, that whenever a planet is revolving around a sun in an elliptical orbit, its aerial velocity remains constant, which perfectly means that the area swept by the planet in a given interval of time around the sun remains constant. So yes, I have written the Kepler's law in the mathematical form, that this is the first position of the planet and this is the position after a certain time, let us say 1 month. So this area P1S P2 and this area P3S P4, which is after a season change. So these two areas are equal, but right now we can see that SP1, this distance of the sun and the planet, is greater than SP3, right? So if this distance is greater, you should not worry about this distance, because arcs are also following this law. Like if this distance SP1 is greater than SP3, then this arc is also greater than this smaller arc, so that the area is constant. That it doesn't matter the distance, this distance is higher, so we were expecting larger area towards this side, but no, this arc is greater and it compensates this distance, and so that the total area remains constant. So P1 P2, which is the arc at this side, is actually lesser than P3 P4, and you can divide both the terms with time, right? So once you get it, P1 P2 upon time, P3 P4 upon time. Don't you think it's the linear velocity of the planet here and it's the linear velocity of the planet here? So what does it mean that the linear velocity of the planet here is lesser than the linear velocity of the planet here. So this actually means a lot. What we are trying to tell by this equation, that although the planet is at the farthest distance away from the sun, when the planet is the farthest distance away from the sun, then its speed becomes so low that even after 1 month it covers considerably less area. Okay, but when the planet comes closer to the sun, its speed automatically increases due to the stronger gravitational pull, and it can cover larger area, and this way the areas are compensated. Like the areas are the same in both the cases, right? So after that we are going to study Kepler's third law. Kepler's third law is also known as law of periods. Now remember, Kepler's first law, law of orbits; Kepler's second law, law of areas; Kepler's third law, law of time periods, right? So this law states that when a planet is revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit, like when the planet is revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit, then the time period that it takes to revolve around the sun in one complete revolution, the square of that time period is directly proportional to the cube of semi-major axis. Now this is the semi-major axis. See, this is the center of the ellipse. This whole big axis is known as major axis. This whole smaller axis is known as minor axis. So if you take half of them, like if you're taking the half of major axis, it will be semi-major axis, and if you take half of minor axis, it will be semi-minor axis. So the time period of the planet revolving around the sun, time period means the time taken by the planet to complete one revolution around the sun, right? So that time period is directly proportional. The square of that time period is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. So this is Kepler's third law. We'll prove all these laws one by one. So these are the Kepler's laws. Now we are going to deduce Kepler's third law. Okay, so when a planet is revolving around the sun, suppose the sun has the mass capital M and the planet has the mass small m. Now we know that since there is a sun and planet in picture, there is a gravitational force between both of them, and when we are talking about the gravitational force between both of them, that gravitational force will be equal to g m1 m2 upon distance square. Right? Here the mass of the planet is small m and the mass of the sun is capital M. So the gravitational force between both of them will be gmm upon r square, and due to this gravitational force, what is going to happen? The planet is going to revolve around the sun. So this means this gravitational force is only providing you the centripetal force that the planet needs to revolve around the sun. I repeat, since we are talking about the motion of a planet around the sun, the revolution of a planet around the sun, so they are bound together with the help of a gravitational force, and this gravitational force is providing us the centripetal force. Centripetal force is nothing but mv square by r, where v refers to the linear velocity. Now you know the relation between linear velocity and angular velocity. In place of this small v, put r omega, where omega is the angular velocity. So once you solve it, you are going to get gmm upon r square. See, both of them are equal because gravitational force is only providing us the centripetal force. So gmm upon r square, and expand it, you're going to get mr square omega square upon r. R cancelled, and you're going to get mr omega square. In place of omega, see, omega is angular velocity and it's equal to 2 pi nu, where nu is frequency and nu is equal to 1 by t. So omega is going to be 2 pi by t. So in place of omega, just put 2 pi by t and solve it. Once you solve it, you're going to get gmm upon r square equals to mr 4 pi square upon t square. Take t square to the other side and all the stuff over here. You're going to get this. And this is nothing but a constant. 4 is a constant, pi is a constant, so the square of pi will also be a constant. Capital G is a universal gravitational constant, so it's also a constant here. And capital M is a mass of the sun, it's also a constant here. So all this stuff is a constant. So equality and constant can be replaced by the sign of proportionality. Like we know that A directly proportional to B means A is equal to constant into B, where A and B are two quantities. Same way, equality and constant can also be replaced by this sign. So the same thing that I've done over here, that T square is directly proportional to R cube. So this is nothing but Kepler's third law, which is also known as law of periods, that I have proven over here, that yes, the time periods of the planets revolving around the sun is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. And now we are going to do another topic, which is deduction of Kepler's second law from the knowledge of angular momentum. See, when you studied geometrical interpretation of angular momentum in 5th chapter, center of mass. So geometrical interpretation of angular momentum is L is equal to 2m into dA by dt, if you remember it. I'll share the link of the video where you have seen this derivation, that angular momentum is basically equal to 2m into dA by dt. dA by dt is area per unit time. It's area per unit time, right? So now we are going to deduce Kepler's second law, which says that areal velocity is constant. Area per unit time is constant. Okay, so how to go about it? See, this is a system of a sun and a planet. When a planet is revolving around the sun, it is doing so because of the gravitational force of the sun and the planet, right? Sun and planet are bound to each other because of their gravitational forces, and that is why the planet is revolving around the sun. And gravitational forces are kind of internal forces. There is no external torque which is acting on the system, right? So torque is equal to 0 over here. And if torque is 0, this means RF sine theta is 0. Okay, so if torque is 0, this means RF sine theta is 0, because these are bound together because of gravitational forces, which are internal forces, right? And there is one more logic over here also, and that logic is, see, again I am drawing this. Suppose this is the sun and this is the planet, right? And this is the axis of rotation of the sun and of the planet around the sun, right? And we know that the gravitational force is a central force. This gravitational force is trying to bring the planet closer to the sun, but due to their distance, the planet is only revolving around the sun. So this is the direction of F vector, which is the gravitational force, and it is towards the sun, right? And remember that now this distance of this axis of rotation and the planet, this is R vector. Now what you can infer from this knowledge, that R vector and F vector are sharing an angle of 180 degree with each other. Okay, I repeat, planet is revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit, and gravitational force is trying to pull the planet towards the sun. It's just that the planet is so far away from the sun that the gravitational force is not able to just put the planet into the sun, right? So it's kind of attracting the planet in this direction. So this is F vector, right? The gravitational force. And this is the distance of the planet from the axis of rotation, which is the sun, and this is R vector. So both of them are sharing an angle of 180 degree with each other. So if they are sharing an angle of 180 degree with each other, this means RF sine 180 degree is equal to 0, because sine 180 is 0. So this makes torque equals to 0. So this is another logic why torque is equal to 0. But we know that torque is equal to dL by dt. Just like force is equal to dP by dt by Newton's second law. Linear force is equal to the derivative of linear momentum, right? Same way, torque is equal to dL by dt. Okay, that is rotational force is equal to the derivative of angular momentum. Now when torque is equal to 0 in this situation, this means dL by dt is equal to 0. Okay, So dl by dt is equal to 0 means change in angular momentum per unit time. Change in angular momentum per unit time is equal to 0. This means angular momentum is not changing at all. And when the angular momentum is not changing at all, this means angular momentum is equal to constant. But angular momentum is equal to 2m into dA by dt. So I would write 2m into dA by dt is equal to constant. But you should remember that 2m is already constant. 2m is 2 into mass, it's already constant. So what is making this product constant? This means dA by dt is equal to constant. And dA by dt is area per unit time. And area per unit time means areal velocity, which is Kepler's second law, which says that whenever a planet is revolving around the sun, its areal velocity remains constant. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि planet जो है वो अगर आप उसे particular time span दो तो वो equal areas cover करेगा regardless of the fact कि उस time पर उसका distance क्या है sun से. So yes, the areal velocity of the planet is constant. So this means this is an orbit, this is sun. If the planet is situated here right now, after 15 days, whatever area it will cover, the same area it will cover when it is nearer to the sun, and you are measuring the areas after 15 days only. Give the planet the same time interval and you will see wonders working here, that despite of the fact that the planet is now closer to sun, it will cover the same area in another 15 days as it had already covered when the season was opposite. Okay, so this is Kepler's second law and we have deduced it from the knowledge of angular momentum. Thank you.